Wiedemer, also joined here by Francesca Page. Bob Wiedemer, of course, is the author of the Wall Street Journal bestseller Aftershock, and he's also the managing director of Absolute Investment Management. Bob, it's great to have you with us.
Hey, John. Good to be on the show.
All right, so what we saw yesterday, especially when we look at the airline companies, was real fear among investors. And that is what some folks are concerned about here, fear outpacing the actual real threat of Ebola.
Well, I don't think there's any question about that. I mean, Ebola is a horrible, horrible human disaster, especially for West Africa. But in reality, in terms of controlling it, we found that it hasn't been that hard. I'll give you a good example. In Liberia, the largest commercial enterprise, the Firestone rubber plantation. Liberia is ground zero for the outbreak of Ebola, yet the Firestone plantation has had almost no Ebola cases, even though it's surrounded by it. So they take basic precautions. It's run by Bridgestone Tire Company, and it's done pretty well. Even Nigeria, which is hardly a case of great government or anything like that, they've been pretty good at controlling Ebola virus. So I think the real spread and the real economic impact is going to be fairly limited. In the end, it's scary, but I don't think we're going to find the economic impact is that bad. The Firestone rubber plantation in Liberia is, I think, a great example of that.
Bob, what about airline stocks? How do you see them doing amid these Ebola fears?
Well, you got two things in airline stocks. Remember, oil prices are going way down. One of the biggest costs for airlines is clearly, fuel, and fuel costs are going down. So I think that's a big plus for airlines. Ebola, obviously, I live in the Washington, D.C. area. People from West Africa at the Washington airport, Dulles Airport, are being screened for fevers and so forth. I think people are worried about it, but I'm not sure it's really going to cut traffic that much. Again, it's not that easy to transmit. I'm not saying it's hardly impossible, but we only had a couple of cases so far. So I think back to what John said, the reality of it is what's probably going to help airlines more is the low fuel prices, and I think that'll offset any true reduction in traffic you get from people being worried about Ebola.
Yeah, we can look at what happened to, say, Delta yesterday, off quite a bit, but already today, I'm looking at a quote here, Delta up about 2.5% right now on the day. So obviously, some investors saw this reaction yesterday and said, you know what, like you said, Bob, fuel prices are coming down. There are some other indications here that make these airline stocks look like a good investment.
Yeah, but I don't want to say that everything's perfect. There is a change out there that I think is very important, and that is the end of money printing. And I think that's the underlying foundation that's starting to kind of crumble a bit for stocks that we have to be concerned about. I mean, just like at the end of QE1, stocks took a fall before it ended, a few months before. After the end of QE2, stocks took a fall a couple months after it ended. So I think there is something that is out there that is causing investors to be concerned, and that's that maybe the Fed doesn't have my back anymore.
Bob, the World Health Organization is saying that more than 1 million people could be infected by January by Ebola. What kind of effect do you think this could have on the world economy?
Well, again, I think a lot of those people will be in West Africa, which is not a huge contributor to the world economy. Now, if you start saying there's a happening case in Europe or Japan or something, that's a big issue economically. Again, a human tragedy of epic proportions if that does come true. I hope it doesn't. I hope that people, we have our own troops over there. I hope that we're going to try to get basic shelters and quarantines. But, right now, the biggest primary impact, I think, has been on like cocoa and stuff like that comes out of West Africa. It's not a huge economic contributor to the world economy.
All right, so let's leave Ebola there for a second, Bob, and focus back on oil prices, something that we mentioned when we were talking about airline stocks here. But is there a point, we've seen oil prices drop, but is there a point at which the price of a barrel of oil could fall too low?
Well, of course, there's always a market setting price where ultimately people stop producing or people stop drilling. But that could be low. We got to remember the big factor that keeps oil prices up in the past has been Saudi Arabia. They've been willing to kind of take one for the team for OPEC and cut production. Nobody else really has that ability or that desire. I mean, Iran, they need all the dollars they could get. And frankly, the U.S., Russia, Mexico, Venezuela, we don't cut back production. We're not part of OPEC, but even OPEC members, the only other ones that can do a little bit are Kuwait and the UAE, and they're not very big producers. So it's really been up to Saudi. If Saudi has cut production, this price can keep going down for a while until you hit a natural floor. And that's only when, that marginal drilling in Russia and the U.S., starts to go down. That's where some of the increases have come. Certainly in the U.S., we know it. So it could go away. Maybe Saudi will react before it goes down to where that's cut out of business. But that's obviously what Saudi's intent is, try to get rid of some of this new drilling including in the U.S., but also in Russia, that is causing some of the problem with the low demand we're getting from China.
Bob, ultimately, what do you think should be the next move for a panicky stock market like this?
Hope the Fed comes back and rides to the rescue. Let's not overdo how much we're down. It is scary, but that's only because we've had such a good couple of years of no correction. We're barely going to hit a 10% correction, if even that. So, and it's technically not a correction unless it's over 10% on the S&P. So, I think hope the Fed comes in because at some point it needs to. This market's been pumped up by Fed money and also by stock buybacks. We've had over $2 trillion in stock buybacks in 2009. Those are tapering off. That's the other tapering that people haven't talked as much
well,
about.
Bob, I hate to cut you off there. There is, as you mentioned, a lot going on, but maybe just everybody needs to take a deep breath real quick. But we got to go. Bob Wiedemer, author of Aftershock, Wall Street Journal bestseller book on investing. There you see it up on the screen. We do need to turn our attention now to another American moment. In a televised address on March 23rd, 1983, here is President Ronald Reagan talking about a nuclear threat.
I call upon the scientific community in our country, those who gave us nuclear weapons, to turn their great talents now to the cause of mankind and world peace.
On March 23, 1983, President Reagan surprised not only the nation, but members of his own cabinet and military by announcing an Oval Office address that the United States would embark on creating an anti-missile system to stop and destroy nuclear-tipped missiles in space. Reagan called the program the Strategic Defense Initiative, or SDI, while his critics quickly dubbed the program Star Wars. Still, the idea gained popular support and played a key role in undermining the Soviet Union and its arms buildup. By 1987, with his own nation facing economic collapse and unable to match the U.S. program, Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev capitulated and signed the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty. Within 4 years...
Tom Frieden, director of the CDC, and other health officials will be on Capitol Hill today. Frieden and other key witnesses will be testifying in about half an hour before a House subcommittee on U.S. efforts to control the ongoing Ebola crisis. Ebola screenings are now expanding to 4 major airports. Newark International, O'Hare, Dulles and Hartsfield-Jackson in Atlanta will start checking temperatures of passengers arriving from West Africa. And here, look at what you might see at Apple's event this afternoon. The company is expected to introduce a new series of iPads. Apple CEO Tim Cook is also expected to show off new Macs and other products. Hurricane Gonzalo has already killed 1 person in the Caribbean, and now the storm is taking aim at Bermuda. Packing 140-mile winds, Gonzalo is expected to make landfall sometime tomorrow. I'm Jessica Page. That was your latest Newsmax Now update. We'll have another one coming your way at the top of the hour.